This is a Flying Cow production.
Book 1, Water. Book 2, Earth. Book 3, Fire. Long ago, Nickelodeon introduced a series called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It combined great anime-style animation, strong storytelling, heart, and humor. It was great, and everyone that saw it loved it. Until one day, a terrible movie came out which everyone hated. But my co-host Loren Collins knows none of this because he's never seen the show. And that's why we are watching every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I believe this could be Loren's new favorite show. Or at least top 20. Well, hello, and welcome back to Comets and Cabbages here on the Flying Cow Network. I, of course, am the Flying Cow himself, Clay Johnson, and I don't suck on frogs.
Well, I'm Amanda Van Heil, and I consider myself more of a pink spirit.
And darn it, I had sort of mentally set myself up with a like prescription for frozen frogs type joke, and Clay, you went and stole it. So yeah.
well, and I came up with mine
pickle?
literally like last second. I was like, I don't know what to say here. I mean, obviously, yeah, it was the one that was right there. But yes, this is of course Comets.
I have heard it like life advice that involves the frog. You've heard this before, right?
I don't think so.
Yes, it is that like to live a happier life, every morning you should eat a live frog, because then nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of
Okay. I've definitely heard something similar to that. I don't know if it was the eat a live frog, but I've definitely heard some version of that.
Yes.
Poor frog.
Yeah, I know. It's
No,
like
not poor frog.
it's
Poor
definitely not gonna be any better for the frog.
many frogs, as in like 365 a year.
Poor froggies.
Man, that's rough for those frogs.
Yeah.
But yes, like I said, Comets and Cabbages are Avatar: The Last Airbender podcast, show, video thing, whatever this thing is called now that it's on YouTube. But yes, we are, of course, talking about these episodes still in Book 1, Water. And we are today talking about the 13th episode, The Blue Spirit, which was once again directed by Dave Filoni and written actually by the creators of the show.
Oh, wow.
So Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, I think that's at least close to right. And this episode debuted June 17th, 2005. I will say, when I think about everything that happens in this episode, I'm like, okay, I get, that they wrote this one. Obviously, this storyline was important to them. I'm surprised though that they didn't write the one previous, The Storm, with Zuko's storyline in it.
Yeah.
I honestly probably would have expected them to write that one more so than The Blue Spirit. But we'll get into.
Maybe this is a writing room situation where that they.
I'm sure it is.
They had the story, but someone else did the final draft, or someone else got to do the pass on it, and so they got the credit for it. Yeah. I was gonna say too, like I was wondering when I saw Filoni's name come up at the end, like when was the last time he directed an episode? And it was Jet. Like it was really literally just 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't long ago.
No.
Did we not say that when we did Jet? I think we did.
If you
Pretty sure we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
But it's been a few
It's
episodes.
been, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a day since we recorded it, but yeah.
Yes, a peek behind the curtain of this show.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah,
it is only we're only 13 episodes in. He's done 5.
Okay.
And he only does 3 more when he's on the show.
Yeah, I think he only is with the show for the first season.
He is. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back next episode, in fact. So.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Which interesting choice. But we'll get to that episode when we get to it. But yes, we are, of course, talking about the episode The Blue Spirit, which I will say is one of those episodes that the fandom has always like really surrounded this episode and attached a lot more importance than I ever did to this episode. I honestly think this is the first time that I really got this episode. And I think part of it is that I'm so used to just watching them, binge mode. And so again, I'm not necessarily, even though I love the series, there are episodes that don't necessarily sink in as much as it would if I'd watched it, week after week, or, the way that we're doing right now. I am still watching like a few in a row, but I'm stopping and pausing and taking notes and really paying attention to stuff. So it's sinking in a lot more than it would normally. But yeah, this one was always one that I never really got why people like were so connected to. Oh, the Blue Spirit, it's so cool. And I'm like,
because people really like Zuko.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it. But watching the episode today, I was like, or not today, but when I watched it, I was like, okay, I get it. This is actually a really good episode. I mean, obviously, Loren, this is the first time you've seen it, but yes. Amanda, did this episode stick out to you in your first watch?
Like anything that involved the Blue Spirit just kind of blended together after a while.
Sure.
So like not particularly this episode, but parts of it, I was like, oh, this was cool. And then like it all just kind of started to blend together.
Right.
I will say it stood out to me. I liked this. It was much more in the vein of what I want to see this show doing than The Great Divide or even Jet, to be honest, which again feels like a one-off type thing. Like this feels like it is building out the show in an important way.
Right.
Even though I was about to ask just a couple minutes ago, a question that I have now answered myself by looking at the wiki, which is, what the heck is the Blue Spirit? Because that's the title of the episode, but I'm not sure they ever said that out loud in the show.
No, I don't think they do in this episode.
Yeah, so I had to figure out, like, what does that title mean?
They will. It is the alter ego that Zuko takes on, and they will later on
say obvious in the sense that, like, I'm not sure he's even blue. He's in the dark the entire time.
Well, the mask is blue.
The mask is blue. Okay.
The mask is blue, and the mask is meant to look like a spirit. So I think that is. I mean, it mimics the look of a lot of Asian masks that are meant to look like spirits or demons or things like that.
Sure.
It's like Majora's Mask, but not.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
It's a Zelda reference. Sorry.
Oh, I know it's a Zelda reference,
okay.
but I don't know off the top of my head what Majora's Mask looks like. I've seen it before.
Well, there are a bunch of masks in Majora's Mask.
Oh, okay.
Like in the game, there's a bunch of masks. So.
But no, this is a show where like actual spirits show up. So I see the title Spirit. I'm not thinking that's a superhero code name.
Yeah, and honestly, you are bringing this up now. I was probably going to say it later, but yeah, no, it's a good point that at no point in the episode itself does anybody actually refer to that entity as the Blue Spirit. In fact, the few times Zhang mentions him, he calls him the thief.
Yeah.
But later on, when this character is referenced, it will be referred to as the Blue Spirit.
Okay. And for what it's worth, there's like an old classic comic book character who's the Spirit, who dresses in blue, but like it's a suit and tie guy. So it's like very, very different.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Although I think Zuko would look rather dapper in a suit and tie.
I mean, it's a classy looking. It's a good cosplay. I may do it one day because.
I mean, honestly, could you imagine that mask on a blue suit and tie?
Yeah,
actually sounds
pretty
really snazzy.
It's sharp.
Yeah.
It's good for like a costume ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go win
Um,
yourself a princess or something.
There you go. There you go. We've got your next ensemble picked out for you, Zuko.
And right.
But yeah, so this episode starts off in a pretty imposing fortress. I mean, we see a lot more of it later on, but just the little bits of it that we see early on, like I wrote down, I was like, whoa, fearsome fortress. And then, but we're directed more to pay attention to these archers, which are also meant to be like super skilled, and we'll see them in action later on. And basically, Zhao, Commander Zhao, is basically talking to the guy who's in charge of these archers and basically saying, I need them to help me get hugs. Give them to me. And the guy's like, no, you have enough hugs. Leave me and my archers alone. This, of course, is, countermanded by a hawk who comes in with a message from the Fire Lord himself, basically saying, give Zhao all the hugs he wants. He's an admiral now. Which I wrote down, why the hell does Zhao keep getting promoted? Because we actually seen him succeed in anything that he's tried to do?
He's very charming, and that's how he keeps getting promoted.
That's really, I'm just like, he's got to be a real smooth talker.
Yeah.
Because he keeps...
Well, it is Jason
He keeps
Isaacs.
setting out with these plans. They keep... I mean, I guess the closest thing I could think of is when basically he turns over the fire sages all as traitors. But that's been episodes ago. That was, I mean, I think it was the last time that we saw Zhao. But that was in episode 8. This is, episode 13 now. That's been 5 episodes ago.
Hasn't been. I mean, like you said, it's the very next appearance of him.
True.
Like, I'm not sure how much time has actually passed.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it just took a while for the Fire Lord to put in his promotion.
It
but
had to go through the proper channels. I was also going to say, we don't know how fast that hawk flies. It's just a slow hawk. It took a break, a lot of breaks on the way.
Well, and he's so slow that every time he gets to a place to deliver the message, Zhao's just left.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like you're sending a hawk to find a boat. So like that is a difficult assignment to be fair. Yes.
Yeah, that hawk needs directions.
Yes.
He needs a hawk map.
Yeah.
To help him know where Zhao is. The guy just keeps moving.
Don't work well with boats. Yeah, that's just
no. All right, but yeah, so we see that Zhao got his new toys. He's gonna get to play with later. But we also then cut to what's going on with Aang and the gang. Which is that, we're bringing in the last episode. Sokka, as a consequence of being stuck out in the storm, is now sick. And he's not just sick, he is delusional. To the point that he is hearing things. And yeah, I love this movie.
You know what I love about Appa the most? His sense of humor.
That's nice. I'll tell him.
Classic Appa.
Classic Appa. Yeah.
At least
I gotta
Appa
say,
appreciated.
I gotta say, honestly, I don't think I can disagree with Sokka. I do think Appa's got a great sense of humor.
Mm-hmm. And he puts up with a lot too.
Yeah, I mean,
Appa's the true hero.
Maybe Sokka's not delusional. He's just finally in tune with what's really going on. He hears Appa for the brilliant comic genius that he is.
Personally, I think it's got to be really comfy just to be like sitting there on Appa, like He's all warm and cozy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to
Yep.
snuggle with Appa.
Yeah, agreed.
They pulled out some of their warm stuff too, that we haven't seen, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say they're both wearing parkas
Yep.
again. I mean, with Sokka, it makes sense because he's sick, but
Exactly, he's sick.
Katara's also back in the parkas, whereas Aang's still just in his. But Aang apparently just does not have warmer gear. So I'm wondering if they are in a colder area because we know that they are steadily heading up north.
Yeah.
Maybe they're back in a colder area. I mean, we'll see, what they're wearing in future episodes. Or is Katara already feeling a chill? Because we do, by the end of this scene,
Yes.
it is revealed that Katara is also getting sick.
Yeah, minutes later.
She started getting really cold after the storm, so she put that on to get good and warm, and then she started getting sick.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, because obviously Katara was out in the storm as long as Aang was. Like at first I was like, okay, was this contagious? But it's not really a virus. It literally is like a cold from damp. So I'm just like, okay, if that's Katara's just getting it later because she was exposed less, is Aang now gonna get sick?
I assume Aang has he's basically a superhero. He's got like
He's got a special monk powers to keep him from getting cold.
Okay.
Yeah. When
I mean,
arrow on his head glows, it just kind of burns stuff out.
I mean,
It burns out the toxins.
It's that airbending power. He can probably repel germs and whatever.
Ooh,
what have you.
That's a nice use of the airbending. Yeah. It's like a pristine bubble.
He is airbenders are also secretly germ benders.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It'd
be nice if he could employ that for his friends.
Yes, as an airbender, he does not have to socially distance 6 feet to keep from getting COVID. He can just spread it back to other people constantly.
Yes, he's immune.
Yes.
He's got a natural immunity.
Yes.
But yeah, so Aang decides to go and try to find a cure for both of them, find some medicine. And he goes and we never see him directed to this woman, but he does just find this random woman who's mixing up stuff. And she's a little interesting. She is. I mean, Aang flat out just says, "You're crazy, aren't you?" And she just goes, "Uh-huh."
She's a crazy cat lady.
Yes, she does have a cat named Miyuki. And I will say it's funny because when she gets there, she makes Aang think feel like she already knows exactly why he's there. She's all ready for him, all this stuff, because she's already mixing up something. And Aang just assumes that it's got to be for him. Well, then the moment she finishes it, she's like, done. And he's like, cool. And tries to take it. And she smacks his hand. And it's like, no, that's Miyuki's food. That's Miyuki's dinner. But she tells him that all he needs to do is get some frozen frogs from the nearby I don't know if she says lake or swamp or what body of water.
Body of water.
Yeah, some body of water. And just to have them suck on them because basically the secretions from the frog's skin will cure whatever is wrong with them. But she makes a point of saying that not to let them thaw out because then they'll be useless. And I'm just like, is the oil on them not the same when they're thawed?
Maybe they just start wiggling too much.
Maybe it's just more concentrated when they're frozen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's funny, that distinction never really matters all that much in terms of treating them, because he probably finds other, obviously, he gets frozen frogs, he puts them on himself, they warm up, they hop away, and then he just finds more, and then he just puts them to him. So that wasn't a problem. I think I have to assume that's there basically just for one, the comic.
It's a way of putting a time constraint kind of on it and to kind of ramp up a little bit of tension. Like he's got to get back at a certain time. But you're right.
But
when they do defrost, he just
I think one is for the comic beat of them suddenly realizing they have frogs in their mouths. And
100%. That's part of what that's for. Yeah.
And also just for the somewhat ominous beats, which doesn't seem to have an explicit reason for it, that when Aang is captured, that the frogs throw out and then they start hopping around the castle.
Yeah.
And the other soldiers see them and they don't really do anything. They're just kind of like this omen for the blue spirit.
Yeah.
Like that. They just see them. But I guess that's the main purpose, because Aang's not going to be carrying around a bunch of like live frogs, but they can go out and do their thing. I guess that's why that's the case. But
I will say though, apparently anybody that gets sick with this thing and then uses this cure apparently takes part in an Arkansas annual tradition. They take part in Toad Suck Days. There's literally a town in Arkansas called Toad Suck.
Oh.
And there is a festival that they do every year called Toad Suck Days.
Oh, interesting. I assume it involves some sucking of the toads.
No. I mean, I haven't been in years, but the last time I was there is basically like a carnival.
Okay.
Like you can go and play
False
carnival games, but
advertising.
mostly it's about walking around, buying cheap crap and really good food, actually. Like good street food.
By the way, does Aang ever actually say what his friends are sick with?
I mean, no. I mean, he basically just says, "My friends are sick," and she's like, "Cool, I know what to do."
Yes.
Okay. It's a nondescript sickness that is, I guess the frogs are just a cure-all kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, Aang goes to get the frogs. But wouldn't you know it, the moment he gets there, he encounters these archers that Zhao has employed, and it takes a little bit, but Aang actually does get captured by these archers, and ultimately, what captures Aang? The bane of all airbenders, a net.
Yeah.
The airbenders.
There's holes in it.
Yes, the airbenders' ultimate weakness, nets.
Nets.
Benders can't handle nets, just like when Jedi's hands get tied up, all of a sudden they can't do anything.
Yes.
Can't do a thing. Yep.
Superman has kryptonite, Aang has nets.
Yep. Absolutely. But yeah, so he has now been captured, and he is held in this fortress, and I think it's at this point that we see how impressive this fortress is, because it's got like I think 2 outer walls, and then like the fortress, or maybe it's 3 walls. I can't remember exactly, but there's like 2 or 3 walls just to, once you leave the fortress, just to get out of it entirely. And Aang is being held like in the tippy topmost tower in the imprisoned this cell, and he's like chained up. And I love the moment when Zhao goes to like gloat. And he's just like, man, I got you. I'm going to get all the hugs I want. The Fire Lord's going to love me. And Aang's just like, yeah, I can still kick your ass. And he like firebends him to the point that he like shoves him against the wall. And Zhao looks like an asshole because he is.
Well, because he is.
But he looks like an idiot. And Zhao's just like, whatever. I still got you. Firelord's gonna love me.
There's something really funny about a grown-ass adult getting that worked up over a 12-year-old.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, Zhao. Well, it's really fun because that obviously this is ultimately going to fail just because of the way that the show is laid out. So the more that Zhao gloats, the more delicious it kind of is when he's ultimately defeated. But yeah, so he, Aang is stuck, and he seems to be at kind of a loss for how he is going to get out of this. Little does he know he has someone coming to bust him out. I will say that even in the early scene, which I do want to kind of talk about the logistics of this, but in that first scene where Zhao is talking to the guy about borrowing the archers is the first time that we see the blue spirit. And so my question is like, because, obviously it makes sense because once Zhao basically gets his promotion, basically he sends out an edict that, anybody else looking for the avatar has to immediately, basically bow to Zhao and give them all of their information because he's the one in charge, basically, of it now. He's like, oh, everybody loves me. But yeah, so so apparently, I guess Zuko. Do we think that Zuko has just been making regular scouting missions like around the Fire Nation as the Blue Spirit, just to kind of hide his identity so that he can, or is he specifically keeping tabs on Zhao as the Blue Spirit?
I have no thoughts on that. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever really thought of that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I didn't think about it until, I think this is the first time that I noticed that he's in that first scene.
Yep.
He is literally, up above them listening to this whole conversation. So he knows that all of this is coming. But I'm just like, how did he know to be there? I think he has to be tracking Zhao. But
I think this has been a pretty limited thing. If not, this is the first time he's done it, honestly.
Right.
Because as tight as the show has been, and as early as this is in the run of the show, I would be inclined to think they just would have seeded like just a cameo or two of the Blue Spirit earlier than this.
I will say I do wish, because later on, at the end of the episode, Iroh remarks as to, where were you? Where are you coming back from? Kind of thing. I would have liked if maybe in the first scene we'd have with Zuko, if maybe he does the same thing. Where were you last night?
That'd be nice foreshadowing. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, maybe at this point, I mean, it doesn't take long for us to know that it's Zuko. We know before it's revealed to Aang, right? That it's Zuko, or do we not?
I don't.
No, I guess we don't. Do we?
It's
okay
as a reveal,
right? Okay, yeah. No, you're right.
I mean,
yeah.
you can kind of guess that it's Zuko, but
I mean, there's a limited number of candidates there, but yeah.
But even still, if Iroh had just given an offhanded remark, so where were you last night?
Yeah,
I don't think anybody would have been automatically tipped off. Oh, he was the guy.
Yeah, no, that would have been suitably subtle for something in that vein. Yeah.
Well, and it also would have, now answered the question of, because now I'm just like, was he not missed? How did he get there? Any of that, stuff. I'm still kind of like confused as to how that first scene happened. But obviously
he's in charge of the ship. I assume there aren't people keeping tabs on him 24/7. Like,
No, but I imagine that Iroh would notice when he's gone.
He's turning in for the evening.
Sure.
I imagine Iroh knew and it's just like, I'm just not gonna say anything.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna see how long this ends up lasting.
Yeah. If Zuko sneaks out for a couple of hours in the evening when he has said, like, I'm going to my quarters, leave me alone, like, no one's gonna question that.
So Amanda, just because of the way you said that, do you think Iroh knows that he is going out as this Blue Spirit? Or at this point, you think he already knows this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Zuko's up to something. He might not realize he's the Blue Spirit, but he knows he's up to something.
Okay, yeah. I agree. I agree with that assessment. I don't necessarily know, because I mean, at this point, I don't think the name, as we said already, the name of the Blue Spirit really isn't a thing. But of course, I don't know. It might be like a family mask. In the moment Iroh saw it, he might just be like, What are you doing, Zuko?
And I get there could always be flashbacks later that contradict this, but it's treated as though this is the Blue Spirit's first conspicuous appearance to other people.
Conspicuous, yes. Like I said, I was thinking if maybe he was doing this before, he was just using it to, get intelligence on the Fire Nation or spy on Zhao or things like that.
If he's around in the shadows and no one notices him, then Zuko, Iroh doesn't have any necessity to know that, like, oh, he's doing something in the shadows and no one's, because there's no hubbub about this. After this, obviously, Zhao and all his people are going to be talking about, like, that masked dude who showed up and stole a bunch of stuff and ran away. Like, he's a topic of discussion. Iroh can put that together at that point if he needs to.
All right.
Yeah.
But speculation aside, getting back to the episode, like I said, Aang has been captured. And the Blue Spirit, we see actually, kind of sneaking into the facility. He grabs onto a wagon that is being brought in and like sneaks in and goes all the way up to Aang's cell, breaks him out. And it looks, for all intents and purposes, like this guy is on Aang's side. This is an ally. And so there's actually a series of really cool sequences where, not only, where the Blue Spirit like just shatters his chains and then his shackles and everything with his swords to like free him, but then like they work together to get rid of the guards. And honestly, that sequence where they have to like figure out how to now like get over the walls, and they're running to try to get through some gates, but they can't, and now they've got to figure out the whole ladder thing. Like I love all of that. Like this whole
funny thing about that scene is where Aang is screaming, and I was watching it last night, and Dan thought it was one of the cats. And he came in, he's like, did I just hear cats fighting? And I didn't hear cat, and then finally realized, oh, it was Avatar. Okay.
Yeah.
It was just the Avatar.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's a bunch of good action scenes. And this brings us back to what I mentioned to both y'all in our little few minutes of pre-show talk that I was going to bring up later, which is that I enjoyed this episode. I feel like by and large, I don't have an awful lot to say about it. And that's because when you get to this latter half of the episode, once Aang is rescued,
it's a lot of action sequences.
It's a lot of action scenes. They're good action scenes. It was giving me a lot of like Samurai Jack feels, honestly, in some ways, because being just a heavily action heavy.
Well, I mean, it kind of feels like a martial arts film.
Yes. And so it's enjoyable to watch and see it play out when it's animated and directed well, and the staging is done.
But unless you're just really good at explaining action, it's kind of hard to say much about it.
And even if you are good at explaining it, it's still not interesting. Like So
he fought with two swords. They're broadswords.
And then he fought with one sword. And then he fought with his hair.
Yes.
Hair whip.
Yeah. But the actual action itself is good stuff. I'll probably that is honestly one thing I was sort of cramming that in here shortly before we finished, and so it was easy to get distracted for that. I'll probably go back and watch that again, honestly, so I can pay a little closer attention to it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, some really good action sequences there. Honestly, I maybe tipping my hand, but really kind of the best part of the episode.
Yeah, and honestly, knowing the reveal that does come at the end, for certain, it's worth going back to watch, because now it's two characters I know, as opposed to I'm watching a bunch of action beats with some stranger who, for all I know, like
it means more. Yeah,
it means more, because in the context of the episode, for all I know, like this is going to turn out to be, someone who dies at the end. Maybe it's going to be treated as a mystery of who they are.
Yeah. They might have had him disappear or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. But now it has a little more meaning to it, and I can view it through that lens.
There you go. But I will say, as all of this action is happening, we are cutting back and forth between what is happening with Sokka and Katara. It's not much of a storyline. It's really the comic relief of the episode, because, you know, Katara, while she is sick, she is not as, you know, delusional as Sokka. I do wonder if maybe she had a lesser form and was never going to get to that stage, or if that was coming. We don't know. But she does kind of do something weird and ask Momo to go get them some water. And I love this bit because we actually see this scene from Momo's point of view.
Listen carefully, Momo. I need you to take this to the river and fill it with water. Got it?
Momo tries so hard.
Yeah, this is how Momo sees the world. This is the scene in MomoVision.
Yes. It's very funny, and also makes me think like Katara did not play it well for this situation, because I think Aang's been gone for like less than a day, and
yeah,
he's already out of water. You apparently have to go to the river to get water.
Yeah, so, I'm just like, I feel like maybe you guys should have gotten water before Aang.
You really should have filled your canteens before you made camp. Yeah, exactly.
I will say,
that reminds me of something I was going to say earlier too. It's when you were describing the epicness of the Fire Nation castle or whatever it is. They're in that it seems like kind of poor planning on our lead's parts, that as they're flying towards the north and have to take a place to crash, decided to crash like within like walking distance of like that giant Fire Nation castle.
Yeah, because it doesn't really seem like it's too far.
No. Maybe they should just try to pick someplace maybe a little more inland and further away from like the dudes chasing them in boats.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it does seem like maybe like Sokka got sick and they were just like, because they seem to be in like some kind of like ruins. So I think they were just thinking nobody's gonna come, even though it is kind of close to a Fire Nation fortress. Nobody's probably gonna come here. Was probably the idea. Plus, Sokka's sick. Yeah. I will say though, when I said MomoVision, like I just got this thought of, you know, like back when like you know, there were constant innovations in like sound or, you know, Technicolor or things like that. There were constantly people coming up with like new like terms for, so they'd be like our new film in Panavision, in VistaVision, yes, an all new episode in MomoVision. Can you just imagine an entire episode? I honestly would love to see them bring that back. Yes, that would be a lot of fun.
One of the live action episodes fully in
MomoVision. It'd be a great extra, like an entire episode in MomoVision.
It's Netflix. They can have a bonus of one of their ads or something for you.
Yeah,
but viral marketing.
Yeah. But I will say a couple of episodes ago, Amanda, you brought up the fact that Momo is a cat, and I told you there was an episode coming up that confirmed that. Yes. Because Momo just keeps bringing Katara the most random shit. At first, she brought her a dead mouse, which I'm like, yes, Momo is a cat.
Momo is a cat.
But eventually, like, we see later that like Momo just keeps bringing her random shit, and eventually, eventually, Momo brings Katara a crown.
I want to know who he got that crown
I know. From. I'm like, what is the story behind this crown? Like, what the fuck? Which is great because, you know, Sokka pays it off later by referring to Katara as Your Majesty.
Yes. It's like the joke in Guardians of the Galaxy when Baby Groot brings the eye. It's like, don't know where you got that from. But leave it.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to the main action, you know, Aang and the Blue Spirit are, you know, trying to get out of the fortress. They're down to the last gate, but it is closed, and they are confronted with the archers. And Zhang comes out, and he's just like, you know, you better just turn yourselves in. And he makes the point of saying, you can kill the thief is what he refers to him as, but make sure that the avatar remains alive. He makes a point of saying we cannot kill the avatar because then he'll just, move into another body. We've got to keep him alive because otherwise it's pointless. Well, the blue spirit overhears this and basically threatens Aang. And so Zhao just decides to let them out. Which I'm like, I don't know, dude. Maybe at this point you do cut your losses and just see, number one, if he will kill him. And then if he does, at least you got a couple of years. You can say, well, I bought you some time to the Fire Lord.
And be like, I'm not the one that killed him. Like,
yeah, but also you could see if maybe, because I mean, obviously he doesn't know it's Zuko, and we don't even at that point either.
Yeah.
Now that we know that it is, Zuko wasn't going to actually kill him. He was just thinking strategically.
Yeah.
But,
those archers were so good earlier in this same episode that they were like hitting like the fabric on Aang's shirt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if Zhao wants to keep the avatar alive, he just tells him it's like shoot him in the legs. Then like if the blue spirit is trying to like walk him away, he can't walk if you shoot him a bunch of times in the legs.
Yeah. But yeah, so they let him out the gate, and then Zhao just proves that he has deserved none of his promotions because he's just like, no, let them get a little farther. Okay, now that they can practically just run away, shoot the thief. And he specifically says knock out the thief. So they knock out the thief, and Zhao's just like, go get the avatar. And Aang just puts a smoke cloud around them. And then I'm like, did you not think that was a possibility? Because Aang just grabs the blue spirit and then runs off. It is at this point, though, that the mask kind of comes enough off that Aang can tell it's Zuko. At least we see kind of the side of the scar. Huh?
I think he pulls it off.
Well, he's laying there, like, and you see like the red.
You see a side of the scar. Eventually, he does pull it off
because he's like, "Wait, I know that scar," and then pulls it off.
Yeah,
like, "Oh no, it's Zuko."
Yeah, but yeah. So, which means that Aang consciously saves Zuko.
Oh yes.
So again, we're seeing
he literally stands there conflicted for a moment about this whole thing. It's a moment for Aang as we're watching him and wondering what decision is he going to make here.
Right. Well, because at the very least, he knows from when they were on Crescent Island that Zuko is also not allowed in the Fire Nation. He's kind of, at least as far as Zhao is concerned, an enemy of the Fire Nation.
Yep.
So, Aang, he's conflicted because, Zuko's been the one after him, but he also recognizes if he just leaves him there, then Zuko will also be in trouble. So
Zuko's in trouble. He doesn't owe Zuko anything, except for Zuko is technically the one in moments ago who got him out.
Exactly. So, Zuko did save him, even though obviously Zuko did so for his own reasons.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't
think that Zhao wouldn't be the one to have.
And of course, at this point, Aang doesn't really know what those reasons are. Like Aang doesn't. I'm not sure Aang really knows what's going on inside the Fire Nation at the moment.
No, I mean, he could probably piece together, that Zuko wants to capture me, not Zhao. But also, Zhao did, or Zuko did save me from Zhao.
Yeah.
So, and Aang is a very, he's a monk. He's a very moral person. So, I think he just, he saved my life. I've saved his kind of thing.
And then in the next scene, we see like he's still sitting there. Zuko is slowly making
I want to talk about that because honestly, I really like that scene. But like I said, Aang and Zuko escape, and Zhao's just like, how'd they get away? I'm just like, because you let them get really far, Zhao. You're kind of a dumbass. But yeah, you know, he's like, oh, Zhao want hugs. Nobody likes Zhao. Hugs for Zhao. But yeah, so you know, they escape, and yes, the very next scene is basically we see Zuko kind of coming to, as Aang is kind of sitting there, and he's kind of, you know, talking about the fact that, you know, when he went into the iceberg, you know, so far as he knew, they were not at war with the Fire Nation, and he kind of misses that. He had a friend, and this is the first time that he brings up his friend in the Fire Nation, Kuzan. And he says, you know, that, you know, Kuzan was a member of the Fire Nation and one of his best friends. And, you know, he even asks the question, you know, if we had met before the war, could we have been friends? And of course, Zuko answers by trying to blast him with fire. But yeah, it kind of adds this like really kind of somber note onto this thing. And of course, the very next scene we get, you know, the silliness of the frogs. But I will say, you know, Aang goes and gives him the frogs, and you know, Sokka's still kind of out of it, is just like, did you make any new friends? And Aang's just like, I don't think I did. Which honestly, it's like it's in a silly moment, but it's just like, you know, kind of a poignant little moment there.
Yeah, it's a somber beat there.
Yeah.
I will try not to think too much about the fact that Aang left them sick while he hung out with Zuko and waited for Zuko to wake up. Ignore that for narrative purposes.
I mean, I imagine that it wasn't there very long. And also, he was knocked out with an arrow. He probably did want to make sure that Zuko was okay.
Exactly. And see, like, again, like I said, for narrative reasons, it has to go in that order. So we'll forgive him. The more important thing, I think, there is that that Aang hung around like to wait and see if he was okay, and to actually talk to him in a nice way. Like the more natural thing you would expect for someone who just saved their enemy. Even if he's going to go to the moral lengths to save his enemy,
sure,
that he will just like sort of make sure he's okay and then just leave. Like,
I will say though,
not be there when he wakes up.
Right. But the thing is, the ticking clock for their own illness was never, it's going to get more serious the longer that it goes. No, it was always on the antidote.
That's fine. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Aang's decision to actively hang around Zuko and to talk to Zuko. Because I think that is a positive reflection on Aang, to be honest.
Well, and also I think he's just like, I think thinks it's worth trying to put out an olive branch.
Exactly.
Because Zuko saved him. He doesn't, I mean, again, I think he can probably put together that he just wanted to be the one to capture him. But they did go through a lot. He's just like, maybe.
Now they have a shared enemy.
Exactly. Maybe there's a way through here, but you know, obviously Zuko's driven. Because here's the thing: we know Zuko's backstory now. Aang doesn't.
No, Aang doesn't. It's not. I'm sure it's not what Aang's thinking about in this moment, but it doesn't hurt that. I'm sure this may not be an explicit payoff down the line, but that he can present himself as a person to Zuko. Like up till now, really, Aang has just been like the target for him, like just some like an animal for him.
He's a means to an end.
Yes, he is just something he needs to catch and like put in a cage and like turn over to his dad. But for the first time, like Aang interacts with him like as just a person,
right?
Like it's the kind of thing you hear about occasionally where people who I think I heard about this. Heck, I heard about this just like last week out of like the Israel-Palestine conflict, where someone who was kidnapped and being held for ransom, like just started talking to their captors and like managed to get released just because like they just made a personal connection with them.
Yeah.
And obviously Zuko does not accept that in this episode.
Yeah.
But it's just again sort of the first step on a path that we're going to see him walk down in the future.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else about this episode that we want to bring up that we haven't mentioned already?
Was this the one where the Fire Nation soldiers were like, I heard the Avatar can run like the wind and create tornadoes?
Yes.
It's a bunch of Fire Lord propaganda.
Yeah, and honestly, when I first saw that, I assumed these were not Fire Nation soldiers. But then they immediately sound the alarm, and I'm like, oh, I guess they were.
Yeah.
Just because the term Fire Lord propaganda didn't really sound like something.
Maybe they were
I mean, I guess there are.
by, maybe they didn't have a choice, and
they were conscripted, probably. Yeah.
Is this the first time we've seen him run like that? I can't remember.
I don't remember seeing him run like that in any of the others.
Not exactly like that. I don't think. I mean, we obviously we've seen him make tornadoes.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
No, I was intrigued to see that partly because, like we discussed with the lightning last episode, creative use of powers. Super speed is not the thing I would naturally expect to come from airbending. I suppose.
But I mean, he can cut through the air. Yeah.
It's a looser interpretation of what he can do. But
Sure.
It's interesting that it just, adds to the list of things he can do. I hope it's not a one-off that for no good reason he runs fast in this episode and doesn't demonstrate that again, because that is useful. So.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I don't think it's like a thing that we see coming back again and again and again, but I don't think it's the only time that we see it.
Okay. Yeah, so long as it gets employed somewhere, because
I don't think it's really thought of as super speed. I think that he can just run fast. It's not like Flash level, or anything like that. But yeah.
I mean, he's not giving any sonic booms as he's going, but yeah.
No. Yeah. All right. Well, if that is it, then let us go ahead and let us get right into our segments. And we are going to start, of course, with our My Cabbages moment.
My cabbages!
Which is, of course, the part of the episode where we discuss our favorite or most interesting scene of the episode. So let us go ahead and start with Amanda. What was your My Cabbages moment?
Everything with Momo, because he tried so hard.
Yeah,
it was so hard, and he meant well.
Yeah,
he just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Loren?
I'm just gonna get this. This is stretching the definition of moment. I grant you, but I'm just gonna go with the latter half of the episode. That's the escape for Aang and the Blue Spirit.
Sure.
Because like I said, it was giving me some Samurai Jack feelings. And for first time in a while, it's a specific thing I wanted to go back and I didn't feel like I paid that enough attention. I want to watch that again. To fully appreciate what they were doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, honestly, mine is pretty much the same. That escape sequence was just really well done. I will say probably honorable mention to that last conversation that he has with Zuko, because I really like that moment. And I think I more appreciate it for what it sets up for their possible connection in the future.
No, I agree. That's a nice bit of closure to the escape, and then again Aang's disappointment that it didn't go.
That there wasn't more to it. Yeah. But yeah. All right, then let us go ahead and get into our Mako Award, which is of course the part of the episode where we it is the award that we give to our favorite or most interesting character of the episode. So, Loren, I am going to go ahead and let you start this one.
I'm afraid I'm going to start creating a pattern here. Since Zuko was one of my choices for last episode, and I'm not quite sure what else to choose for this episode. Obviously, this is a big step on his journey going forward.
Yeah.
Last episode was giving us some backstory that established him as someone who had some noble instincts.
Yeah.
And that led him to the position he is. Here we're seeing him doing something that is helping our heroes for selfish reasons, which is
right.
Again, an interesting way to develop him in a way that's not lessening him as a villain in any yet. Because both
Right.
these can still be perfectly villainous,
But it's extremely interesting.
but it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zuko.
All right, Amanda.
I've got to go with Zuko again. Also, just those action sequences using the double broadsword is just so cool.
Yeah, I didn't really think to ask you because I'm obviously that is a real set of weapons. Like
I've never used two. I've used one, but
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it with two.
yeah, but I mean the way that it's very impressive
So
the way that he
cool.
uses
Like
them.
I'm watching it going, I want to do that.
Right. Honestly, I'm gonna make it a trifecta. I am also giving this to Zuko. I mean, I again, it's also back to back for me, but he's been really impressive in these last 2 episodes. And honestly, I didn't think to mention it in the last episode, but we went like a couple of episodes in a row without Zuko.
He's not
And
in Great Divide, I don't think.
no. No, and then all of a sudden he gets 2 back to back, which are just really good Zuko episodes.
I think that's good planning on the part of the show
Agreed.
is to let him sit low for a minute, because otherwise, if he'd had just some subplot in the immediate previous episode that was like the pirate one, where it's just like him and Iroh like chasing tiles and fighting pirates, and then the very next episode is important. Like, no, that would feel weird. But
and also I think that they found a good way because in previous episodes, I think there have been things of Zuko that we liked or we found interesting, but we gave it to Iroh because Iroh was the awesome one in the scene.
Yeah.
Where they found a way to kind of, I mean, Iroh's there, but he's definitely, taking a back seat in these episodes. And, in the last one, he was facilitating Zuko's story, whereas in this one he's just not in it very much. But I think Zuko is really becoming an interesting character, definitely from the standpoint of viewing him as a villain. But all right, well then let us go ahead and get now into our rating using the Avatar State Meter. This is, of course, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, the show at full power, 1 being the lowest, could give the show a fatal blow. Who knows? But Amanda, gonna go ahead and start with you. What is your rating for this episode?
This one is definitely getting another 4 because it is a wonderful episode. I thought it was really, really cool. Only reason it's not a 5 is just because there's my favorite is in book 3.
Sure.
I'm also going to give it a 4. I mean, this is solid stuff. I'm glad to see. I'm interested in seeing where the show goes from here for the rest of the season.
Agreed. We are in complete agreement. I am also giving this a 4. I like this one, and I think it's a really good follow-up to the last episode. I didn't like it as much as The Storm, but like I said, for an episode that I never really thought much about, and now rewatching it for this and really kind of paying attention to it, I really kind of got the hype, I guess, of this episode itself. So really good episode. 4 for me. All right. Then we only have one last thing, and that is, of course, to ask the question, the most important question, the question that we are all here to find out. We're sitting on pins and needles. Loren, is this your new favorite show?
I will say that having 2 solid episodes in a row. I mean, this is especially coming after The Great Divide.
It doesn't get worse.
No.
This is improved the show's reputation in my head a lot in just the last 90 minutes of watching this show. Again, like I was saying just a second ago, I'm interested in seeing where it goes from there. It's gotten me, caught back in. I figure, given the number of episodes we have left, at least for this season, a lot of them are going to be a little more focused. You mentioned that one of them
might be surprised.
You mentioned in a previous recording what comes up in the literal next episode. But if it's a strong silly one, I'm fine with that.
Sure.
I'm not one of those folks who wants their streaming shows to just be all mythology all the time. I like standalone episodes if they're solid.
This one has some really funny moments, really freaking funny moments.
But we're close enough to the end, and I saw on Dave Filoni's thing a second ago, there's a part 1 and a part 2 coming up at the end of the season. So
yeah,
and you made a mention of the North, so I know they reached the North, and that becomes sort of the focal point of the end of the season.
Yes.
So we're clearly building towards that, and we don't have much time until we're gonna get there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the remaining seven episodes we have of the season, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, 7 more.
So about 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
Roughly. Yeah.
So not your favorite show yet?
It is not my favorite show yet. And for the record, since it's also in the intro, not in the top 20. So if you wanted to ask it obviously would be reaching the top 20 sooner than the top 1.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but you got to ask the first one first, and then you downgrade.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, I guess you could. Yeah. It might build more tension. It's did it make it to your top 20? Because at some point, if it does, then it made top 20. Is it top 1? No.
Yeah.
But it's
no.
like I said, still higher than Full House, lower than Frasier. So
okay. All right. So it is the time where we want to go ahead and let people know where they can contact us. Of course, you can contact me at the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. Make sure to check out all of our other shows, discussions, as well as Around the World. Will be coming out here on the YouTube channel, but if you want to get us in podcast form, you can do so at patreon.com/theflyingcow. You can get that Patreon feed, podcast feed for only $1 and get all of our shows there. You can also get all of our stuff 1 week early for only $10, as well as lots of other things at different tiers. So make sure to check that out. Amanda, Loren, what you guys got going on?
Well, I tend to talk about Zelda a good bit on the Zelda Universe TV YouTube channel.
I don't believe it.
Every now and then I do talk about Zelda. And I also stream some Zelda and some other games on Twitch, Panda Princessa. And you can also find me on Twitter at Amanda Van Heil, where I talk about Zelda there too.
And you can find me at Loren Collins on Twitter, where I never talk about Zelda.
You promise?
Promise. I have never played Zelda. I know nothing about Zelda. But the largest extent of my experience with Zelda is watching the cartoon that used to be part of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show that aired.
I have it on DVD.
That one.
When they aired that cartoon on Fridays. Yes.
Yeah. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show with Captain Lou Albano.
Exactly.
As Mario.
Yes. One of my friends has 2 little kids. I think they're 5 and 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I convinced her a couple months back when the Super Mario Brothers movie came out, and they kind of wanted to see it. I said, if you want to play a prank on them, what you could do, because I kind of wanted some parents, friends who are parents, to tell their kids we're gonna have a movie night and then show them the 90s Super Mario Brothers movie. Yeah. And then just not tell them. The kids are young enough. I figured if they're wanting to see it, they know it's a cartoon. So you can't put on the live action movie and fool them. Yeah. So I suggested what she should do is sit down where it's like, we're going to watch Super Mario. They'll be excited and put on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. And sure enough, they liked it.
I used to watch it when I was little.
Yeah,
and then I rewatched it and I was like, I voluntarily watched this show.
It is, I will say, I have watched episodes of that show like recently. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
There are parts of it that are still fun. I mean, I couldn't watch like the whole season of it, but I could watch an episode here or there.
Streaming
it's
and
bizarre.
YouTube honestly have done things that I'm not sure we fully appreciate for nostalgia goggles. In looking back on the stuff you enjoyed as a child, because like prior to like the 2000s, by and large, if there was a thing you remembered loving as a kid, you probably didn't see it again as an adult unless it was good enough for people to like keep re-showing clips of.
Right.
If it was just the crummy stuff that you saw as a kid, it just got lost to history.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like for instance, when I was a kid, I watched Gummy Bear. I watched like Gummy Bears and the Wuzzles and stuff like that. I remembered those shows. Gummy Bears, I think, has held up okay. When I have watched,
decent.
It's decent. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's great, but like it's.
I mean, for one of those like Disney cartoon shows, it's not bad.
No, and it was led by a guy who like had some vision for like the mythology of the gummies and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly.
Has a theme song that slaps.
Had some sort of plan. Yeah.
Yes. The Wuzzles, however, is just like hot garbage. Like it's still Disney, like it's even Disney, early Disney TV animation. Like it's not good. Yeah. Like I tried watching on YouTube and I couldn't make it through 5 minutes of this show. It is just. Wow. I've seen worse stuff. This is still like
I was about to say, Loren, better or worse than Hey Vernon's Ernest?
Avatar?
No, the Wuzzles.
The Wuzzles? Oh, crud.
I mean, I would hope at this point that the Avatar is better than Hey Vernon's Ernest.
Yes, Avatar's Hey Vern is better than Hey Vernon's Ernest. It has my stamp of approval on that. No, darn it. Let's see. On a single episode of Hey Vern, It's Ernest, I imagine is better than a single episode of The Wuzzles.
Okay.
That was kind of my position on Hey Vern, It's Ernest. For anyone listening here, is that Hey Vern, It's Ernest had some like decent comedic ideas. The problem was with that show is they repeated all of those ideas episode to episode. So if you watch this, like as we did, binge the show, it is just insanely repetitive.
Yeah.
It's just recycling not just the same setups, but
also not funny. But
it's not really funny. But I mean, it's
you want to hear more about that? Listen to the podcast.
Hey Vern, It's Ernest commentary, which should be dropping in soon. Honestly,
in a couple of months or so. I've kind of messed with the order because I wanted,
Halloween.
I wanted Halloween, and also, there was an anniversary this month. But yeah,
oh yeah, no, that's tough. They're both bad for different reasons. Is the problem? Right. So yeah.
Well, I will say I think we can probably negotiate the Wuzzles at a later time. For right now, I will say
yes. I would point you to do for discussions on Wuzzles.
We'll see. We'll talk that one over. But for right now, I will say that we will be back next time reviewing the episode "The Fortune Teller." But until that time, moo.
Moo.